26 kids climbed down a ladder into a truck buried under a California quarry, and the hole closed over them. Every one of them came back out alive, and the reason was a 55-year-old bus driver's memory. Ed Ray couldn't see a thing inside that van, so he did the only thing left. He counted. This is a crime planned for 18 months, undone by 6 characters on a license plate. July 15, 1976. Chowchilla, California. Flat farm town, a couple of stoplights, the kind of place where nothing happens. Summer school let out that afternoon at Dairyland Union, a little earlier than usual. Ed Ray had driven that route for years. He knew which kids sat where and who talked too much. 26 children, ages 5 to 14, on a yellow bus heading home down Avenue 21. Around 4 o'clock, a white van sat sideways across the road, blocking both lanes. Ray slowed down. "You'd slow down too. Broken down vehicle, hot day, nothing about it," says Danger. Then a man stepped out with a nylon stocking pulled over his face, holding a gun. 2 more came around from behind the van. 3 masked men, and almost no words spoken. Ray was walked to the back of his own bus. One of them took the wheel. Some of the kids laughed at first. They thought it was a prank. That stopped fast. They drove the bus a short distance into a dry slough, a low, brushy ditch off the road. Bamboo and willow grew thick down there. They parked it inside, and from the road the bus vanished. 2 vans were waiting. Windows painted over from the inside, no handles on the inside of the doors. The children were split between them. Ray went too, told to lie face down on the metal floor. Then the doors shut. For the next 11 hours nobody in those vans knew where they were. Here's what makes this case different from almost every kidnapping you've heard of. The 3 men in the masks weren't desperate. They weren't broke. They weren't strangers to money. Frederick Woods was 24. His family owned a rock quarry and an estate south of San Francisco. James Schoenfeld was 24. His brother Richard was 22. Their father was a podiatrist. Nice house, nice cars. 3 young men with sports cars and too much free time, who decided a crime could be a project. They'd been working on it for roughly 18 months. Not daydreaming about it. Working on it. They scouted bus routes. They timed traffic. They wrote the steps out like a homework assignment. And they'd built a place to put 26 children where nobody on earth would think to look. Months earlier they'd bought a moving van, just the box, the part that holds the furniture. They hauled it to a quarry in Livermore, 100 miles north, owned by Woods' own father. They dug a pit, dropped the trailer in, and buried it under 12 feet of packed dirt. Inside went mattresses, bread, cereal, water, a couple of fans, and 2 portable toilets. They cut a hole in the roof, set a steel plate over it, and left a ladder underneath. Then they waited. Because the kidnapping was never the point, the money was. $5 million. That was the number. Chowchilla was just where they'd take the hostages from. Back in the vans, the children sat on bare metal in July heat, in total darkness. Some were crying. Some had gone quiet, which is worse. A few had wet themselves. Ray kept talking. Not speeches, ordinary talk, the way you'd steady someone in a stuck elevator. And the whole time he talked, he was doing something nobody in that van knew about. Before they'd shoved him inside, he'd caught one look at the back end of those vans. A glance. A few seconds at most, long enough to read 2 license plates. So he started repeating them, silently. Over and over, hour after hour, in the dark. You know how a phone number falls out of your head the second you stop saying it. That's what he was fighting. 11 hours of it, with kids sobbing 2 feet away. He had no idea if he'd ever get to tell anyone. He just kept the numbers moving. Meanwhile, the bus never arrived in town. Parents started calling the school office. The school called the sheriff. The sheriff found nothing, because the bus was inside a bamboo thicket. It took hours to spot it. Empty. Doors open. 27 people gone, no note, no witnesses. By nightfall the FBI was in a farm town of a few thousand people with nowhere to start. And the men who took them were still driving north, hours ahead of everybody. Around 3 in the morning the van stopped. The doors opened onto darkness and warm wind. One by one, the children were walked forward. Each was asked their name and their age. And each had to hand over one piece of clothing. A shoe, a shirt, a jacket. That was the proof of life kit. 26 names, 26 ages, 26 things a parent would recognize instantly. Then they were pointed at a hole in the ground and told to climb down the ladder. Picture being 9 years old, and the last thing you see is a square of night sky. The steel plate went on. Then 2 industrial batteries about 100 pounds each set on top. Then dirt, shovel after shovel. Then an engine pulling away. Then nothing at all. 26 children and 1 bus driver, sealed in a furniture trailer under a working quarry. Nobody above ground knew that pit existed. If those 3 had crashed on the drive home, that's where this story ends. Down there the air went thick and smelled like turned soil. The fans ran off a car battery. Kids were vomiting. The little ones kept asking when their moms were coming to get them. Ray got them onto the mattresses and started handing out jobs, because a job is something to hold on to. And once they were settled, he did what he'd done in the van. He started looking for the way out. The hole was the only way, and it sat under a steel plate and 200 pounds of battery. So they stacked mattresses into a tower. Ray and a 14-year-old named Michael Marshall climbed up it. They pried a wooden slat off the wall and used it as a lever against the plate. It moved maybe an inch. Then it jammed. Then it moved again. It took hours. Push, rest, push, shove one battery sideways, then start on the other. Then dirt began falling onto their faces, which meant they were past the metal and into the earth. They clawed upward through the fill until Michael's arm broke through into open air. 16 hours after the lid closed, a line of filthy children walked up out of the ground. All 26 of them. Ray came out last, the way he'd stayed in front the entire time. They walked to a guard shack at the quarry, where a very confused employee called the police. If what stays with you is the driver and not the men in masks, that's what this channel is for. Stick around. Now here's the part that flips it. The kidnappers didn't even know the children were gone. The ransom call had never gone through. Chowchilla's phone lines were jammed solid with reporters and tips. They couldn't reach anyone to demand their $5 million, so they waited. And they got tired. 2 of them drove home and slept. They woke up to the news that the kids were out. 18 months of planning, beaten at the finish line by a small-town switchboard being busy. But that's not what convicted them, something much quieter did that. Investigators had an abandoned bus, a hole in the ground, and 26 kids who'd only seen masks. And they had Ed Ray, who kept insisting he'd seen the plates and couldn't get the numbers back. He'd held them 11 hours in the dark, then spent a day and a night digging out. It's like walking into a room and losing the reason you came. It was in there, he just couldn't reach it. So they brought in a hypnotist. Not to invent a memory, to quiet the noise around one he already had. That's the real mechanism. Fear doesn't erase what you took in, it buries it under everything else. Under hypnosis, Ray started reciting. One plate came back nearly complete, every character but a single digit. That was enough. Agents ran the possible combinations through California's vehicle registration records. And a van came back registered to a man named Frederick Newhall Woods IV. The same family that owned the quarry. Those children had just clawed their way out of. At the Woods estate, investigators found handwritten notes, a draft of the ransom demand in his own hand. Richard Schoenfeld turned himself in about a week later. James was arrested not long after. Woods ran the farthest, all the way to Vancouver, and was picked up in Canada. All 3 were convicted and given life. Because no child had died, parole eventually stayed on the table. Richard was released in 2012. James in 2015. Woods, the one who designed it, was paroled in 2022. The children grew up with panic in small rooms and a fear of the dark that never fully left. Ed Ray went back to driving a school bus. Same district, same roads, for years afterward. He died in 2012, at 91, still living in Chowchilla. 18 months of planning to leave no witnesses, and they handed the only real one, a 5-second look at a bumper. That's the whole case. A middle-aged man in the dark, refusing to drop a number nobody had asked him for. Cases like this deserve to be remembered. Like and subscribe, so the next one isn't forgotten. Next time, a ransom that actually got paid, and a kidnapper nobody ever identified. Take care of each other.